Hey guys, welcome into this segment from our full-length The Onside Kick podcast. In order to get the full podcast, go down to the description, go to Blog Talk Radio / The Onside Kick to download the full thing. Enjoy, everybody. All right, now my favorite topic here on the podcast. Whenever Mark and I talk about it, whenever Brandon and I talk about it, whenever I'm talking about it for the NBA side with Sean and Dave, now I get to talk about it by myself. We're talking NFL draft now to end the podcast, and really I want to take the Jimmy Garoppolo stuff that I just got done with and transfer it over into the draft. And this is kind of part 2 of the Jimmy Garoppolo discussion of how does the Jimmy Garoppolo decision, or really the Patriots' decision to keep Jimmy Garoppolo rather than trade him, how is this going to affect the draft? And mainly what I am going to look at are the top 3 picks in this year's draft, because let's be honest, it's going to have a ripple effect. It's going to have a trickle-down effect in the draft. And if I'm looking at the last mock draft set up by myself, the first quarterback that I had off the board was not in the top 3. I did not have the 49ers take a quarterback. I didn't have the Bears take a quarterback either. My first quarterback came at number 6 with Mitch Trubisky going to the New York Jets. Now, that was when the Jimmy Garoppolo trade was still out there. Are the Niners going to trade for him? Are the Bears going to trade for him? Really, with this trade, the team in the top 3 that this decision affects the most is the Chicago Bears, because now it really comes down to the fact that what are you going to do? The Bears were apparently, Mike Rankin talked about it on Behind the Pen. If you haven't listened to it, it's a great listen to, even though now the Jimmy Garoppolo deal is done because he virtually is pulled off the table. But it's a great podcast to listen to. If you have not, go check it out. Mike Rankin talked about it. And really, you can't have Jimmy Garoppolo. Nah, boo-boo, stickhead, and doo-doo. You can't have him. And now the Bears have a decision to make. Do you still go non-quarterback at number 3? Or do you take one of the 2 quarterbacks that is probably going to be on the board? Because let's be honest, the Browns were also in talks to trade, or they were in the rumors, I should say, to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. But let's be honest, they probably weren't going to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. And now that they have the number 1 pick and we don't have that trade anymore, it's going to be Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett is going to be the number 1 pick. So after that, it comes down to, do we see quarterbacks at 2 and 3? So for the Bears, odds are one of the 2 quarterbacks, either Mitch or Deshaun, are going to be there. Trubisky, Watson, which one are you going to take? Probably, obviously, the leftover if the Niners take one there. And the thing is, for the Bears, I still wouldn't do it. I still, right now, would not draft a quarterback in the top 3. What I would do if I was the Bears is I'm still going with my guy. And you could say, or I'm going to say my position, because if they took the other guy in this position, I'd be happy. Go safety. If Jonathan Allen is not there, if the Niners go quarterback, you go Jonathan Allen. If Jonathan Allen gets taken by the Niners like he did in my 2.0, you go safety. So you either go Malik Hooker, you either go Jamal Adams. And if you want the little rundown of those 2, Mark and I talked about Hookers versus Adam on a previous edition of the Onside Kick, so you guys can go check that out. I won't waste your time too much with it right now, but to me, if I'm the Bears, that is what I do. I still avoid a quarterback. I kick that can down the road, but I don't kick it too far. I only kick it to the second round, because what I think the Bears can do, and of course, we've got the combine coming up this weekend. We've got the interview process. They're still going to see the kids in their pro days. I really think that the Bears could grab a quarterback with their second round pick and be just fine. You do not have to blow a 3rd overall pick on a quarterback. And the one thing I will say, and this is for my Bear fans out there, I want to know what you guys think. I was listening to Cap and Company on ESPN 1000 here in Chicago, and they had the discussion of, if you know this kid is good, and really they were talking about Mitch Trubisky, and they were saying, okay, everyone's saying that he should go back to college, and the estimate on him, and I'm going to put it that way, the estimate on him is that, oh, he goes back to college, oh, he'll be a number one pick next year. So if you're the Bears, if you're thinking, well, if he went back to college and he'll be a top pick next year in the draft, why not take him now, redshirt him this year, and then basically you got him because you took him a year early and you just don't play him the year before. You redshirt him basically in the NFL. And for me, I want to know what you guys think down below, but I'll tell you what I think. That'd be a horrible decision for the Bears to do. Not only are you, in my mind, wasting a third overall pick, if you draft, let's say you draft Trubisky with the third overall pick. That's great. That is great. You got a quarterback. You play him day one. You play him day one, especially with your quarterback situation, unless Jay Cutler is still there. Then an argument could be made that, hey, we could let Jay Cutty play out this season and get a high draft pick yet again, because Mike Rankin, I'm sorry, Jay Cutler just is not that good. And then you could redshirt Trubisky. But if Cutler's gone, which I assume that he will be, you don't have any quarterbacks. Mitch Trubisky or Deshaun Watson, whichever you pick, is starting day one. If you pick him and redshirt him behind a random quarterback and don't play him, you're virtually wasting the third overall pick that you could have gotten either a different need or a BPA player, and I'm just against that entirely. I'm against that entirely for the Chicago Bears, mainly because, like I said, you are wasting that pick. I think if I'm the Bears, you gotta. Here's one thing. This is the last thing I'll say about the Bears, because I want to get to the Niners and the Browns as well, because I realize that I'm focusing a lot on one team. The Bears don't need a quarterback at third overall. Like I said, you can get that in the second. If I'm the Bears, I maybe look at giving a little phone call maybe to the Tennessee Titans and saying, hey, what trade can we work out? You guys can get the third overall pick. We will fall back into, or actually, not the Titans, the Jaguars. And I would trade back a pick to try to get some assets and then go and take Corey Davis, the wide receiver. I originally said the Titans, but I'm like, why would I trade with the Titans? The Titans would just take Corey Davis then with the third overall pick instead of the fifth overall pick. That just wouldn't make too much sense at all. Maybe trade back with the Jaguars. If you're not going to go wide receiver, you could trade back the pick. But really, I make that pick at 3, and I take a non-quarterback. The 49ers. This is a team I want to move right up. We'll move right up the draft order from 3 to 2 now. The 49ers will need a quarterback because as of Thursday, I'm recording this podcast on Wednesday, as of tomorrow, the 49ers are not going to have a quarterback on the roster because Colin Kaepernick, he's opting out. He's going to be a free agent. And the 49ers will not have a quarterback on their roster. And I know Kyle Shanahan, it's been said that he's going to bring over Matt Schaub from Atlanta to at least be there. Boom, you got one if that happens. But at number 2, did you take a quarterback? If Matt Schaub is my quarterback, I take Mitch Trubisky or Deshaun Watson. Either or. Whichever one you think is better, I'm not going to debate one over the other. The 49ers are probably in the spot where, depending on how free agency goes, are you confident with Matt Schaub being your starting quarterback this upcoming year? I am not. I am not if I'm a Niner fan. And it's not like a quarterback is going to come in and bingo, right away, bring you guys to the Super Bowl, whether that's Matt Schaub, whether that's Trubisky or Watson. But because of this Jimmy Garoppolo trade that isn't going to happen now, the decision to pull him off, I'm kind of leaning towards the 49ers taking a quarterback. And really it's because Colin Kaepernick won't be there. You have 0 quarterbacks on your roster. I'm not confident in Matt Schaub to be the starter in San Fran. I think the 49ers might be handcuffed into a quarterback pick at number 2. Mainly because you need a guy. You need a guy to lean on, and really you could take either or. I mean, Trubisky, Watson at this point. I like Trubisky a little bit more. I think Deshaun Watson consistently isn't 100% there in the consistency department. When he comes up in big time moments like he did at the end of that Alabama National Championship game, phenomenal, great. And the one thing I did hear today is one of the callers that called into ESPN 1000 was like, oh, you had Dabo Swinney on and he had such great things to say. Of course Dabo's going to talk up his boy in Deshaun Watson. What do you think? You think Dabo Swinney's going to come on the radio and bash Deshaun Watson? Come on, get with it. Use your noggin. But because of the Jimmy Garoppolo decision, I think that virtually the Bears, you don't have to take a quarterback. The Niners might have to, and it's not a direct like, oh, this didn't happen, they have to take a quarterback. It's a compounding thing. The one thing I will say for the Niners, and I don't think Mark and I touched on this enough on Monday, because with the Redskin topic, we really focused on Cousins hopefully getting a long-term deal with the Redskins, but can the Niners work out a deal for Kirk Cousins? Really, that's what the decision comes down to. For the Niners, can you work out a deal for Kirk Cousins to bring him to the 49ers? Kirk Cousins has already said he would accept a trade to the 49ers and he would sign a long-term deal with San Fran. Bingo, bango, bongo. You're good if that happens. If you can't get that done, I think the 49ers are going to be taking a quarterback with the 2nd overall pick in the NFL draft, especially if Matt Schaub is the only quarterback on their roster, unless they want to roll the dice with him. They want to roll the dice with him, be bad, say, you know what? We are going to be like the Philadelphia 76ers. We're just going to be bad that first year and then move on. Really, it comes down to, like I said in my mock draft, what is going to be the plan? What is going to be developed by Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch for the 49ers? And then we got to move into the number 1 draft pick, the Cleveland Browns. Really, out of the top 3, the Niners weren't in the biggest rumor mill for Jimmy Garoppolo. The Bears and Browns were. I even had in my mock draft, I started out there are reports surfacing about the Browns being interested in trading for Patriots backup Jimmy Garoppolo. Well, if they got Garoppolo, they weren't going to take a quarterback. But at number 1, the Browns could take a quarterback. I'm going to say they could. However, you look at their roster right now. They have RG3. They have Cody Kessler. They have Kevin Hogan. If you draft a quarterback at number 1, you are not going to Jared Goff it. You are not going to be able to say, hey, you know what? He's not starting day 1. We got Robert. He's going to be our guy. Plus, why put Robert in that situation? He was already in that situation in Washington with Kirk Cousins. I know Kirk Cousins wasn't a first round or a first overall pick. It wasn't a first round pick. It wasn't a first overall pick. But you put Robert Griffin in that position already with Kirk Cousins. Well, the Browns didn't. The Redskins did. Why would the Browns then go and put RG3 in that situation? I think the Browns are set. I think it's one of those things where, are you confident in RG3 to win you a Super Bowl? No. Do you think Cody Kessler is going to win you a Super Bowl this year? No. Is Kevin Hogan? No. However, Cody Kessler to me is the guy that showed some promise last season, and I don't think you have to take a quarterback. Will a quarterback be taken by the Browns in this draft? You betcha. But will it be the first overall pick? No. I think Myles Garrett's the pick to take. I think he is the guy that gives the Browns the most bang for their buck at the number 1 overall pick. So right now with the Jimmy Garoppolo decision, because a trade's not going to happen, how my top 3 changes from my last mock draft is, if you didn't check it out, the mock draft is down below, but the top 3 picks I had: Myles Garrett to the Browns, Jonathan Allen to the 49ers, and then Malik Hooker to the Chicago Bears. I would like to lean on the same 3. I would like to say that a quarterback will not be taken in the first 3 picks, just because I personally don't think Deshaun Watson or Mitch Trubisky are worth a top 3 pick at this time. I mean, Deshaun Watson, the only reason he played himself into the top 5 bracket is because of his last game against Alabama. Consistency-wise, he hasn't all been there the entire season. I mean, early on in that senior season, or this past season, I should say, he didn't look too hot, especially when his team was almost getting upset by, I think it was Temple early in the season that almost upset them. But I would like to stay with the same 3, but I think because of, not directly because of this, but because it's not out there, of course they can trade for Kirk Cousins. The Niners are the only team that might change in my 3.0. You'll have to wait for my 3.0 well after the NFL scouting combine to see how my top 3 changes, but it might change. If it does, it'll change to Garrett, Mitch Trubisky at 2, and then either Jonathan Allen, Malik Hooker, or Jamal Adams for the Bears at 3. But this is where you guys come in. I want you guys to let me know, what do you guys think? I'll blatantly throw out the question, does the Jimmy Garoppolo decision affect the top 3 in the draft at all? Does it affect the draft whatsoever? One team that I did not mention that I do want to throw out there that I think will be affected because of this is the New York Jets, because let's be honest, the Bears have the option. Even though I said they shouldn't take one, they could take a quarterback at 3. Trubisky and Watson could be off the board 2-3 now because of the Jimmy Garoppolo. If the Bears took a quarterback, then that's a boom. That's because the Patriots kept Jimmy Garoppolo. If that happens, the Jets, like I had Trubisky going to them in my mock draft, they aren't going to think about a quarterback, and they won't be able to have the chance to even take one because they will be taken at 2 and 3. So they're the one team outside the top 3 that I think the Jimmy Garoppolo trade decision could impact the most, unless you want to think about the Bills, but they're all the way at 10. I think that the top 2 quarterbacks will most likely be taken now before the Jets pick at number 6. But like I said, this is where you guys come in. Let me know down below in the comment section what you thought of the entire podcast. What did you think about the top 3 picks in the draft? How do you think the Jimmy Garoppolo decision affects the NFL draft? What do you think about Jimmy Garoppolo's future? Is he going to be a Patriot long term? Do we see a franchise tag situation happening next year? And then finally, Adrian Peterson. What do you guys think? Where is he going to play? Give me those teams, especially on Twitter at Ricky Widmer or at Most Valuable Pod. You can go ahead, leave them in the comment section. And of course, thank you guys for listening. A little bit of house cleaning. I said the Twitters at Ricky Widmer at Most Valuable Pod. Make sure to check out mostvaluablepodcast.com. That's where everything goes. The video are the podcasts, the articles, all the videos on YouTube. You can subscribe to the YouTube page. And then if you like the podcast in long form, of course, Most Valuable Podcasts is where they go. But we also have blogtalkradio.com/Most Valuable Podcasts, where all the podcasts could be found in full form. I want to thank you guys for checking out this solo cast. It was my first solo cast here for Most Valuable Podcasts. Let me know how I did. I will be back with Mark across the table in video form for you guys. We'll be back in the studio next Monday to kind of talk about what's going on with the scouting combine that will be wrapping up and the free agency market that's set to hit next week. I want to thank you guys for listening to this podcast. And as always, have a good day, everybody. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that segment from the onside kick. If you think the fun stops there, you're wrong, because click the video right over here. What are you thinking? Come on, click it. It's going to go away. It's going to go away. Bye, everybody.